What is going on, guys? It is Sumner H, and in this video we're talking about the F word. I'm talking about failure. Is it the magic bullet to your training, or is it something that you should avoid at all costs? Let's dive into it. What's going on, guys? It's Sumner H, the founder of the Healy Blueprint, the course that gets average guys and girls in amazing shape. What we're gonna talk about today is probably one of the most controversial topics, and it's something that really has changed my training over the years, and that is the topic of failure. For some, failure is the only way they believe you can build muscle, right? Failure is what they preach. If you're not training to failure, you're a yeah, you know what I was gonna say. And on the other hand, you have the guys that believe that failure is the devil. If you're gonna go to failure, you're gonna injure yourself. It's unnecessary, it's unsafe. Really, it's just a barbaric technique for freaking meatheads who don't know better. Let's uncover this. Now, I need to preface in this video, we're using a blend of research and anecdotes from my own life. I'm gonna let you know what the difference is, right? First, we're gonna dive into the research. What is the research telling us? Well, the main study that we're gonna be referencing is a really interesting study that took place in Spain, where they took 42 basketball players. And that's not basketball. Basketball is like an equivalent of racquetball or tennis, some kind of interesting sport that very few of us know about, but it's not too important to study. What they did is they took these guys, which were, they were athletes, but they're relatively untrained in the weight room. They had about 5 months on average of weight training experience before going into the study. And so they broke these 42 players up into 2 different groups. You had one group that was going to failure, one group that was not going to failure. And this is what the rep schemes look like. There was 3 phases. The first phase was 6 weeks, second phase was 5 weeks, and third phase was 5 weeks as well. Now, to sum up these results, it was actually pretty lackluster. What they discovered was there's essentially no difference between the group that went to failure versus the group that did not go to failure. There was no strength difference. There was no hypertrophy difference or muscle growth. Really, everything seemed like it was pretty constant. There were some subtle changes between the group, but not much. So how do we take these results and how do we apply them to our own life? Well, this is where we're gonna crack into the anecdotes, okay? These are the experiences from my own life, my own experience of going to failure. This is what I've learned, is that going to failure is a tool within your tool belt to be used at certain times. I would not write off going to failure, but by no means is it your main training principle. And what happens is you get so many guys that go into the gym who they don't know how to measure intensity, right? They don't know how close they are to failure. They don't know when to stop necessarily. So how they quantify having a good workout is just by going to failure, right? It's the only thing they know to do, so they just go to failure on everything. And what I've learned from my own experience is that going to failure on everything is gonna hinder your recovery, which, if you've been in the weightlifting community for a while, you know that frequency is one of the most important factors to building muscle. Hey guys, it's Sumner here, and I'm gonna make a quick point which I did not mention in the video. The study had the candidates only training 2 days per week, which likely explains why they did not talk about frequency and they saw no change in recovery. So if you're training on a 4, 5, or 6 day program, the frequency piece is gonna come into play because your recovery is gonna be hindered. Thought I should mention that. Back to the video. Right, we're training every body part at least 2 times per week on average. So if you're gonna hinder your recovery, that's actually gonna really get in the way of frequency, which that might have some negative implications on muscle building, but this wasn't actually looked at very closely within the previous study. But from my own experience, going to failure can be incredibly difficult to allow for proper recovery time. If you're gonna hit that same muscle in 48 or 72 hours, it can be really, really difficult to recover in time. The other piece is safety, right? A lot of people will say that going to failure is unsafe, and this is true to some respects. While I do take certain exercises to failure, there's some things why I will absolutely just rule out going to failure on. A good example would be a squat, a deadlift, an overhead press. These are things that the risk is so high that if you actually push it all the way to failure, you're gonna run the risk of injury, which if you do injure yourself, that's really gonna mess up your frequency because you might be out of the gym for weeks, right? So what I like to do is have a very regimented workout routine where I'm working in failure intelligently, right? There's some exercises like a barbell curl or a dumbbell curl, or even maybe a lateral raise, which is gonna be very, very easy to take to failure. Really, the risk is not there. as far as injuring yourself. It's very minimal if you're doing the proper form, or if you have a good spot, you can take bigger exercises to failure like a bench press or what have you, if you have a spot, right? So what we can learn from this to make it super simple is that going to failure is a tool to be used in your tool belt. There's a certain time and a place to take it to failure, but as an overall training approach, going to failure is not gonna be a great foundation, right? This is not a training strategy, it is a training tool to be used wisely. And that is exactly how I've done it in my training. From my experience, integrating it in intelligently has led to way better results, both on the recovery end, on avoiding injuries, and really on overall just building more muscle. Because when I first got into the gym, failure was the only approach that I knew. I didn't know how to measure an effective workout. I wasn't tracking my lifts. I wasn't looking at increasing the weight over time. I wasn't looking at progressive overload. I wasn't looking at frequency. I wasn't looking at total volume. I wasn't looking at any of that. All I was looking at is how hard am I working right now in this moment. That was the one thing I could quantify. And so if you're in that frame of mind, I recommend getting onto a program or creating your own program where you're intelligently working in failure, but you do not want it to be the sole foundation of your gym routine. All right, guys, I am out of here on that note. We're gonna keep it short and sweet today, nothing too complex. If you guys enjoyed this video, be sure to subscribe, give it a thumbs up if you got a little value of nugget, a little nugget of value. And if you guys have any questions, drop them down below or follow me on Instagram right there, and I will be sure to get back to you guys. I'll see you guys in the next video. Sumner H out.